Okay, I'm going to show off the new Forms feature here a little bit. One of the most important things that people, or tasks that people need to accomplish with a website is they need to present users with forms that collect information from the user to be used in their own marketing efforts, or just to create membership systems, or any number of, there's hundreds and hundreds of uses for forms. And one of the problems with forms is they're so open-ended in what you can do with them or what might need to be done that most of the basic systems like Drupal, Joomla, WordPress, Concrete 5, they don't really create forms. They have some built-in forms that you can modify, but they don't really have as part of their core system a form system. And there are add-ons for those. There's all kinds, and some of them cost quite a bit of money. To buy a form gantry system for Drupal might cost you thousands of dollars, and then you have to hire an engineer to do the very, very complicated Drupal module coding to make the form do something for you, right? And they have their own really complicated form API, which you have to hand code the form. There's no tool to build the form. You actually have to build these complex JSON objects by hand and then process the whole thing out through JavaScript. And it's a very bug-ridden and very expensive, labor-intensive process to build forms for a lot of those systems. There are some better ones for WordPress. But again, what they basically do is, okay, they let you build a really nice form, and then about the only thing that you can do with it is send the contents of the form to somebody's email address, which is a good thing. I'm going to do that as an initial deal on this. Anyway, so the other thing I've done is the form submission in this. It forces you to submit the form through a centralized form submission controller, which scrubs the data to make sure no matter what you do with it, you're not going to have SQL injection problems. And you also have a central place that if you need to go and do some additional cleanup or write some additional rules for it, it's easy to get in there. There's one file, one place to go do that, one function actually, to go do all that. And I'll show that in a later. I'm not going to get into code land here today, so I'll get into that in a different video. I just wanted to show the basic form feature and show you some of its strengths today, and hopefully get some response and questions and answers going from people about the whole deal. So again, what I have is there's a forms table, there's a forms submission table where the contents of any form are turned into a JSON object and stored in a bucket so that you can retrieve them later, write a little thing that extracts them as CVS so that you can do a spreadsheet out of your tables or whatever, or out, for that form ID. And then the other thing you can do is you can add custom actions, which can be any number of complex programming type things, or simple programming things. Like for instance, instead of sending a form to an email address as part of the core thing, no, it's just an action, so I made it an action. And I'll create some initial actions to go with this thing to start with out of the gate so that it has useful purpose to people as is. You might not ever have to add an action, with the actions that I give you. But, I'm sure people will think of all kinds of crazy complex things they need to do, and they'll have the ability to go hire some Yii programmer to do that for them. And it also gives Yii programmers a place to market product. You can write a package of actions that will go with the system that then you can do a little added value to people and earn some extra money. So anyway, so let's get back into this. We'll go to forms. Form is a type of content. It's a block content. The form is a separate entity, right? So here's the initial screen. I need to add an ID field to this. It's actually in the background and it generates one automatically, but I need to go ahead and let you name them. So I'll get that in here before this is released. And then you have post as Ajax and replace form with return URL, yes or no. And what happens here is if you say no, it's simply after the form processes and it runs its actions, it goes to that URL. Right? Here in this case, it's just taking you home. So, of course, that could be anywhere. So say once somebody's given you their email address or whatever information, you know, they've done the survey, you want to take them to a page with some goodies, right? A coupon, what have you. You can do that. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can say post via Ajax yes, and what happens then is it does a background JavaScript submission via post to the action controller, which does all of its stuff, does its actions, and then returns whatever view you define here, which doesn't have to be a full HTML page, but just a view, like a simple div that says, thank you very much for giving us your email address, or, you know, contributing to our survey, right? A very common thing that people need to do. Notice here I have two actions defined. One is email form notice to admins, and this other test action is actually it's an action I have in the process, which is going to be allow you to save contents of submission to a table, and then you can simply add the table on as an argument, right, to the action, and you can duplicate the action and do as many different tables as you need. And that hopefully that one action will allow you to save the data to the contact database, the message database, a database of your choosing that it will create for you on runtime, right? The actions themselves are stored under the system, over here under system form actions. Eventually there's going to be all kinds of actions in this system, you know, that are actions that have things to do with forms, page actions, you know, user interaction actions, whatever. So here, you notice I've got this guy, email form notice to admins. It's just got a name and a description. And then this is the route that it actually processes, right? And if this were a function that lived inside the form class, I would need nothing right here. It would just run it. But in this case, I didn't want to pollute my actual form class with custom code, right? So I wrote an extension to it, and if you looked at that thing, it would just say, you know, this file is in this location, would just say, oh, extends form. So it has everything in, you know, when you load it, it loads form. So it has everything from form in it, so it knows what to do with the form submissions. It also has what gets passed into it is the form submission and the form ID, the originating form ID. So it knows what to do with that. Plus, any submission data is passed off into this thing, so it knows what to do with that. And again, this is probably an engineering level thing, but it gives people the ability to simply, you know, you need to add actions to your system. You know, you can pick them up, download them, put them in the right place, then add an action, name it whatever you want, put the path and the right stuff in here, and then it shows up under that actions pull down of things that you can assign, the actions that you want to run on the form after it submits. So how do you get a form in a page? Okay, well, I've created that form. Let me get back into it and show you what it does. In this case, because I don't think I showed this bit, the form builder itself is interactive. It's drag and drop, and it's fully editable. You know, so like say for instance, I needed to add a series of checkboxes here. I could do, or not. Let's not say checkboxes. Let's say checkbox group, right? And then I needed to edit the contents of those checkboxes. You know, actually give them names and values, name-value pairs, and the field name, and whether or not it's, you know, it's validation, whether it's required or not, right? This one you can see it's actually letting me say what type, you know, it's giving me content validation is a text, password, email, whatever, right? Let's close that guy down. Let's go ahead and delete that guy because I don't really need it in there. And this is just a simple email address and message text. Notice I haven't added a button to it. The buttons are added by the system. I probably need to, and I will add before I release this, a button text field to this so that you can say what the button text is that goes on the thing. The button is actually, it has to be generated dynamically because it's doing some stuff based on whether this is yes or no. So I can't just let you use your own form button. Now you can use buttons in a form, right, that set a value that, you know, does something, or even passes you off to another form, or whatever, because you can add custom JavaScript to the block. But that's a discussion for a different day. I mean, you know, there are programmers out there that know how to do all that kind of crazy stuff. For most people, you're just going to be creating a simple form, sticking it in a page. So here I've created my form. It's a very simple form, it's 2 fields. Form settings, I'm not going to post as Ajax, I'm just going to take you back home, and I'm going to email the form notice to the admins in the system. There only happens to be one, so it'll send out one email to admin roles. Now to get this in a page, it actually needs to be a block. I need to define a block that has a form in it, because you have to be able to insert it as a block type. So I've given you the ability. I went through our nifty handy little block types UI thing. I created a block type called insert form, and it lets you just, when you create one of these, it opens up a screen that gives you one option, right? Name, you can, of course, all the other stuff you can do with the block. It's got all the permission stuff in it. You can insert custom JavaScript. So like, for instance, if you had custom JavaScript that you needed to insert in here to get the form to do something special you wanted it to do, you can do it by simply adding it to the block. Right? And under block code, oh, there's no code. It just lets me say pick a form. So it knows, you know, to insert this thing, right, in the page. So I've created my block. So now if I go to pages, and I'm just going to stick this in the home page. Right here, right now, there's nothing in the home page. It's just this stuff, right? So I'm going to go to the home page. And I'm just going to add a simple row to the page, edit it to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and put the token in here now because I know what I want to do. I'm going to say test form. All right, whoops, not from, form. If I don't spell that right, it won't show up. And then I've already created my block. So if I go to shared blocks and say add block, there it is, test form. And I'm going to add the token test form. Say add. There it is. It's live. It's using the right token. So I can update the page from here. And if I refresh this page, it will have a form in it. Now if I fill in this information, this email address and this message text, and hit the submit button, it'll send the admin of this system that message and return email address. Really basic, but you know, I think you get the power of what's going on here, because these things can be as complicated. I mean, you can have chains of forms. You know, one page that directs you to a form, you know, so you can have multi-page forms if you need to. All of them pointing back to the same database, right? So that each page stores the stuff it needs to store in the database as you go through the form. So, you know, you could use it to create questionnaires, you know, employment systems, you know, filling in resumes, you know, anything, marketing funnels, help desk type situations. You know, you could basically at this point with this thing create your own CRM with what's in the system the way it is now. This is not a CRM, but you could use the things that are in here, right, to create a basic nuts and bolts CRM without having to go out and, you know, pay, I don't know how much it is a month for Infusion or some of those other CRM solutions, which are pretty expensive. And plus, you could craft it to your own, your own internal needs, exactly to your own internal needs, not be dependent on how some other software developer thinks you should run your systems. Anyway, so there we are. That's the basic thing about forms, and I hope you guys find it useful. And we're signing off.